Nowadays, headphones are a completely common thing. We wear them on public transport, while walking, at the gym, at work. Sometimes we even forget to take them off when talking to people. It seems like headphones have always been a part of our lives. But if you ask a simple question, who invented them and why? The answer is quite different from what you might expect. Because the first headphones had nothing to do with music, and they certainly weren't created for pleasure. At the end of the 19th and beginning of the 20th century, music was listened to in a completely different way. There were no streaming services, no radios in every home, and no personal devices. Music was either live or shared. One room, one sound source, many listeners. But solo listening was almost non-existent. And this is where the first strange, almost forgotten chapter of headphone history appears. Some of the first people who needed sound for just one were telephone operators. They spent hours sitting at the switchboard, connecting calls manually, and they needed to clearly hear the person they were talking to without disturbing others. The first head receivers appeared, heavy, uncomfortable, often with a single speaker that was pressed against the ear. These weren't headphones in the modern sense, but rather a working tool, sometimes so heavy that they had to be supported by hand. There's zero comfort. Neither are there aesthetics. But the idea was there. Sound can be personal. The real turning point occurred at the beginning of the 20th century, and it is associated with the name of Nathaniel Baldwin. Baldwin was an engineer and inventor. He created the first headphones truly usable for music, with two speakers that fit on the head. And he did it, in his kitchen. He proposed his invention to the U.S. Navy. The military was initially skeptical. But when they tried it, they realized it was just what they needed for communication in noisy environments. Thus, for the first time, headphones became an important technical device, and not just an auxiliary accessory. Music was still secondary. The main thing was connection, intelligibility, concentration. The operating principle of headphones is actually surprisingly simple. Inside each earphone is a small speaker. It consists of a magnet, a coil, and a thin membrane. When an electrical signal is applied to the coil, it begins to move in a magnetic field. The coil pushes the membrane. The membrane moves the air. Sound waves are produced. So, to put it simply, headphones are tiny speakers that sit against your ears. The only difference is the size, shape, and how the sound is directed directly into the ear canal. The 1920s and 1930s ushered in the era of radio, and it was here that headphones received a second life. Early radios were often listened to with headphones. This was cheaper, simpler, and didn't require powerful speakers. Many early radio amateurs sat around in the evenings with huge receivers and headphones on their heads, looking as if they were trying to contact another planet. But gradually, loudspeakers became more affordable, and headphones faded into obscurity once again. The real cultural explosion occurred much later, in the mid and late 20th century, when portable electronics appeared. Cassette players and later legendary devices like the Walkman made music personal. Now it was possible to walk down the street, ride a bus, sit in the park, and listen to your own world without sharing it with anyone. And suddenly headphones became a fashion accessory, a symbol of privacy, a way to disconnect from others. Over time, headphones acquired another function that their creators certainly didn't think about. They became a social barrier. Putting on headphones means I'm busy, I don't want to talk, I'm in my own world. Sometimes the music doesn't even play, but the headphones still work. In this sense, headphones are one of the most effective inventions of mankind. Over time, different shapes emerged: large on-ear, compact in-ear, and wireless. But the principle remains the same as it was 100 years ago. Small speaker, sound, ear. The form, materials, and technologies change, but the idea remains surprisingly stable. Headphones weren't invented for music, they weren't created for pleasure, and they certainly weren't intended as a stylish accessory. They emerged from a practical necessity, to hear a signal in noise, to concentrate, to separate sound from the surrounding world, and then they became part of our everyday life. Today, we put them on without even thinking that this is one of those inventions that has changed not only technology, but also our behavior. And perhaps that's why the headphones fit so perfectly into the story. Because everything great often starts with a very simple idea.